From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Welcome to another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is JURI. I'm your host. Today we have a very exciting guest. He is running for a next congressman and he's a counselor. And we want to introduce you to Jake Auchincloss. Hi, Jake.
How are you? I appreciate you having me on.
Wonderful. Jake, can you please tell us your background, who you are, and then why you're running for this position?
Absolutely. So I'm a city councilor in Newton currently. I'm formerly a Marine officer. I was born and raised in Newton, and after commanding Marines in Afghanistan and then in Panama, I came home and served my hometown as a city councilor for the last 5 years. I have focused on housing and transportation and education in my time at the local level. And I'm running for Congress to deliver results for the constituents of Massachusetts. For too long, Americans have been losing confidence, rightfully so, in the ability of the federal government to get stuff done. And now, at a time when more than ever, we need competence and we need to be able to trust our leadership in Washington, D.C. to deliver results for us on public health, on the environment, on the economy. I'm someone who can go down there and work together with others to deliver results for the residents of Massachusetts. I've done so in the military, I've done so in business, I've done so in the nonprofit sector, and I've done so in local government.
Wonderful. So what is really your motivation to become a next congressman?
Yeah, my story sort of threads together two different influences. One on my mom's side, my great grandparents came to the United States right after World War I, fleeing the pogroms in Russia. And this country sent my grandfather, their son, a poor Jewish kid, to college during the darkest hours of World War II. And I believe that every kid should have the kind of opportunity that my grandfather was afforded, and that this government has work to do to ensure that everybody has the chance to succeed in the way that he was able to. On my dad's side is a very different story. My great-grandfather, my great-uncle were able to serve in the Roosevelt and Kennedy administrations. And growing up, having dinner every Sunday night with my grandmother, she used to talk about service, about public service, about her brother and her dad's service in a way that, honestly would almost sound quaint today. She was proud of it. She thought that politics was noble. She thought that public service was something to aspire to. And, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, having dinner with your grandma, that sticks with you. And I oftentimes think about how do we make government now in Washington, D.C. something that I would be proud to tell my grandchildren about.
That's amazing. So were you, as growing up, were you always interested in becoming a politician?
Not necessarily a politician, but I always loved American history, and I always was interested in our country's past and our country's form of government. I had the Declaration of Independence handwritten on my bedroom wall growing up. My friends used to make fun of me for it. The only thing that survived from my bachelor days when my wife and I moved in together was a portrait of the founding fathers that actually I have above my desk right now. So yes, I've always been a nerd. I've always loved American history. Politics wasn't necessarily what I thought was the right course of action. When I graduated from Harvard in 2010, the United States was in the middle of its surge to Afghanistan. And at that time, I felt like the best way to honor this country was to serve in uniform. And I was privileged to command Americans overseas, first in Afghanistan in 2012 as an infantry platoon commander in Helmand Province, and then as a special operations officer in Panama, doing drug interdiction patrols. I came home, and at that point, the best way to serve, I thought, was serving at the local level in my hometown. I think we've seen in the last 25 years that Americans increasingly have come to trust state and local government more than federal government because state and local government gets stuff done. Doesn't mean it's not at times acrimonious. Doesn't mean that it's not at times full of vigorous debate. But ideology tends to get checked at the door. And instead, as a city councilor, I get to focus on paving the roads, building the schools, taking the trash out. And if I don't, I'll get stopped at the grocery store by my neighbors. And that sense of accountability, that sense of collaboration, I think is something I'd want to bring with me to Washington, D.C.
That's really incredible. Thank you for sharing your personal story.
I appreciate you asking about it.
Great. And then, so during your campaign, what are the things that you are really focused on to, get your vote and all that stuff?
Right. Well, I mean, I think right now, any elected official who's not reprioritizing and reconsidering what we need to be focused on in the light of the greatest public health and economic disaster of the last generation and potentially the last 3 generations needs to have their head examined. We're all at the local level as a city councilor in Newton, as a candidate for Congress. I'm rethinking the priorities for legislation in the light of COVID-19. First and foremost, we have to ensure public health and safety. That means ramping up testing capacity. We want to get to 100,000 tests a day in Massachusetts, I think is a good goal. We're not there yet, and that needs to be the focus. We also need to have the cousin of testing, which is contact tracing, because that allows for those who were potentially asymptomatic and interacting with others to not spread the disease far and wide. We want to be able to trace down their contacts and sequester them. If we can do a good job of testing and contact tracing, that buys us the time to reopen the economy safely while we're working on a vaccine. And ultimately, it's going to be a vaccine that's required before we can get to fully safely reopening the economy. So number one, public health and safety in light of COVID-19 has got to be our priority, federal, state, and local partnership to get that done. And then number two is, with 20% unemployment in Massachusetts, and, I know in Foxborough, for example, the loss of tax revenue from Gillette Stadium and hotels will be a disastrous impact on the local budget. In light of these kinds of fiscal and economic impacts, we need to continue to have federal support to get people back on their feet, families back on their feet, local governments and state governments.
So you gotten endorsed by different politicians to run for the Congress. And what are the politicians that are endorsing you and friends that you want to maybe shout out or mention?
Well, I'm proud to say that the chair of the Foxborough Select Board has endorsed me, as well as the chair of the Sharon Select Board. And those 2 endorsements mean a lot to me because as a fellow local elected official from Newton, I know that local elected officials oftentimes are the ones that have truly their ear to the ground and a visceral appreciation for the challenges and the strengths of every given local community. I will never hope to understand, Foxborough, Sharon, Franklin, Attleboro, as well as the people who have lived there all their lives, the people who have run for local office there. What I mostly have to do is commit to listen. And I think I've earned their endorsements because I've listened and I've made it clear that as a member of Congress, I'm going to listen and then I'm going to deliver results to improve the lives of people living in Foxborough.
That's incredible. So I know you mentioned earlier in the conversation about the transportation issues in Massachusetts through the Green New Deal. Would you please tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Well, it can feel hard to remember now, but there was a time not so very long ago when traffic and transportation challenges were the biggest issues or some of the biggest issues that we had in Massachusetts. We couldn't move people around. And, fortunately, hopefully soon we are going to reopen the economy in Massachusetts, and we are, unfortunately, going to see traffic reemerge. And likely it's actually going to be worse because fewer people are going to be willing to take public transportation, at least at the beginning. So we are going to need federal, state, local partnership to reinvent transportation in Massachusetts. That means all electric regional rail with 15-minute headways so that people can truly build their lives around them, not 9 to 5, but be able to actually build their lives around all electric regional rail, bus rapid transit, and better infrastructure for cycling and walking. We can create the kind of infrastructure that allows people to live, to see their friends and family without being anchored to a vehicle at all times. It's going to reduce carbon emissions in this state. It's going to improve air quality. And we know that respiratory problems from pollution are a major challenge in Massachusetts. And it's also going to make our downtowns more pleasant and more walkable.
Great. And then you mentioned about maybe drug price and healthcare that you are passionate about. Would you please share that vision with us?
Absolutely. This is an issue that is important to me, both personally and professionally. I grew up in a healthcare family, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. Everybody is in healthcare, either as a researcher or a physician or as a public health professional, except for me. Never liked hospitals much myself. And we need to make sure that the kind of superb healthcare that is delivered in some of the world's finest institutions right here in Boston, Massachusetts, places like Brigham Women's, where my son was born just a month ago, is available to all Americans. Thank you very much. Yeah, they were fantastic there. We need to make sure that that kind of quality care is available to all, and that the prescription drugs that some of those fine doctors and nurses are prescribing are affordable, especially for senior citizens. I think we can get to a point in this country where there are zero copays for Medicare patients. That is something that industry wants. That is something that the federal government wants. That is something that senior citizens certainly want. And there is a way to drive to a negotiation there. But we need people who understand healthcare at the level that I do, and we need people who are willing to compromise as I am.
Wonderful. So right now you're serving as a city councilor, but jumping up to the congressman level, like, do you feel a little bit pressure, or do you feel that this campaign, like, a lot of strategies and team of people working together, like, you're maybe challenging yourself to a new chapter in your life? So how do you feel right now?
So I would say that the biggest thing I've got going on right now is actually not running for Congress. It's going on to week 4 of my son's first month of life. That, being a new dad, to me is really, you're talking about stretching yourself and about learning new things, and that is where that's happening right now in my life. But to me, running for Congress is really it's the next step in service for me. I was able to serve this country as a Marine officer. I was able to serve my hometown as a city councilor. And now I'm afforded the opportunity to serve my home state as a member of Congress. This district has a proud history of really superb representation, people with a national profile who are able to represent Massachusetts and get stuff done. People like Barney Frank, Joe Kennedy, Father Drinan. And I'd be honored to be the next in line of that proud history.
Wonderful. So I personally had a privilege to work for Congressman Joe Kennedy III's campaign one time. I'm a piano player. And then I remember his private campaign speech about how he wants to really change, systemize, using his privilege. But I think a lot of politicians are seeing these systematic changes and then big views. And I was very impressed that at the beginning of his candidate for Senate at the beginning, and then now as a congressman, are you in touch of the Congressman Kennedy or different congressmen, and then maybe getting some advices or conversations around it?
Yeah, I have a good relationship with Congressman Kennedy, as I do with Congressman Moulton, and I've been able to speak with Congressman McGovern. There's a lot of good role models in Massachusetts, both past and present. And while it's important to forge your own style and to stand by your own values and beliefs, I think any good member of Congress is going to be looking, especially in a place like Massachusetts that prides itself on its history, is going to be looking at what came before and making sure that we emulate the very best of that.
Great. So is there any website that people can visit to learn more about your campaign?
Jake4ma.com. That's FOR, Jake4ma.com. And we've got a COVID resource page. We've got a profile of my biography. And of course, we've got a synopsis of the issues as well.
Wonderful. So people can learn more about you. And how can people reach out to you if they have any questions, what your visions are?
Absolutely. On the website, there is a form that people can submit, and we'll get back to you within 12 hours.
Wonderful. And then do you get any requests you have, so far, as the campaign goes, are you getting some questions from people?
Absolutely. Even though we're all quarantined now, we've still kept up a very busy schedule of debates and forums. I spend a lot of time on Zoom, as I'm sure many people do these days. And I'm always happy to speak with constituents on the phone. We've been doing phone banks at least once a week. In fact, oftentimes twice a week, reaching out to people, checking in, seeing how they're doing, talking about the issues. And we'll continue that all the way through until September 1st, the election day.
Wonderful. So I really appreciate you coming on to Foxborough Cable Access and then really talking to us, like, your personal story and your personal visions. And then do you have any message for particularly people in Foxborough?
Well, I know that Founders Day was canceled it's generally on June 13th, but I'll be there next June for the next Founders Day as the next member of Congress, and we're going to celebrate in style.
That's wonderful. Well, Councillor Auchincloss, thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope a lot of people will visit your website and learn more in depth about you.
I appreciate you having me on, JURI.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for watching another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is JURI Love. And then if you have missed another episode, please visit our website, fcatv.org, and then click on Around Foxborough. We have Michael Weber as our executive director and Paul Beck as our director. Thank you for watching again. See you next time.